as a sidebar, were you embarrassed by what happened at Stanford Law School a few weeks ago?
So I'd like to clarify that I am...
In regards to the suppression of free speech with the federal court, district court judge?
So I'd like to clarify that I am testifying here on my own behalf and not on behalf of...
I understand that. I'm just curious. I mean, I would imagine you would be embarrassed by that, but are you familiar with GDR, East German Stasi secret police?
I'm sorry, can you speak up
Are you
a little bit?
familiar with GDR, the East German Stasi secret police?
Generally, yes.
Generally, yeah. We know they use techniques of threats and intimidation, censorship in order to maintain and control and ensure continuation of government power. They're one of the most repressive and powerful forces that we've seen in our modern world. Now, I'd like to quote some of their objectives and some of their tactics that they would use. The aim of the Stasi was to switch off a group or private citizens by hindering any positive media or public exposure to their thoughts, views, and policy positions, including pressuring newspapers and other media. Would you be comfortable with the government using those kind of tactics in order to suppress thoughts, views, and policies?
If your question is whether I'm comfortable with the American government using the tactics of the East German Stasi, the answer is no.
Thank you. Mr. Sauer, do you see any difference between Stasi secret police tactics and government suppression of individual expression on social media?
Make sure your microphone's on. Sorry.
There's a very strong analogy to be drawn there, and it's based on overwhelming evidence.
Well, I see no difference at all.
It's a very close comparison.
I think it's an incredibly close comparison. I mean, I would reemphasize, including pressuring pressuring newspapers and other media in order to hinder any positive media or public exposure to their thoughts, views, or policy positions. There's no difference at all.
That's correct.
Let me give you one other example. We're talking about the East German Stasi and the tactics they used. Another one, conspicuous visits to homes or workplaces so that citizens would be aware of and intimidated by their presence and power. We had a journalist here who was not a conservative journalist, by the way. He was here for a matter of a few hours talking about the weaponization of the federal government, and during that time, the IRS showed up at his house, something that the Secretary of Treasury admitted only happens, so far as she knows, when someone is under investigation for fraud and they need a personal interview. That's the only time she knew of some IRS agent appearing at someone's house. That happened while he was here testifying for our committee. Mr. Seligman, does that appear as an unlikely coincidence to you?
I'm not familiar with factual details of Mr. Taibbi's taxes.
As I've described it, does it seem unlikely to you?
I am not familiar with this incident, so I can't comment.
Well, I've explained the incident to you. He was testifying before Congress, and the IRS went to his home.
I have no idea whether it's a coincidence.
Okay, Mr. Sauer, how does it appear to you?
The timing is incredibly suspicious.
It's incredibly suspicious. And I'll quote again from Stasi secret police tactics: conspicuous visits to homes and workplaces so that citizens would be aware and intimidated by their presence and power. I think my description to you is sufficient that you could make a judgment of that.
Again, I'm not familiar with the details of Mr. Taibbi's taxes.
All right, so I'm surprised that you wouldn't want to condemn that. I'm surprised you wouldn't want to say, you know what, as you've described it to me, that makes me uncomfortable, that the IRS would show up at someone's home while they're testifying before Congress.
As a matter of principle, government retaliation for the exercise of free speech is problematic. It's wrong. I have no idea whether that has taken place in this case.
So conceding that you don't know if that's happened, you would be uncomfortable if that were the case.
I am uncomfortable with violations of the First Amendment.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about here. And I know you've seen on display the emotion of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle. I'm shocked that they don't want to condemn it. I'm stunned that they don't ask you the same questions that we ask. How in the world could anyone sit and listen to this and go, you know what, that's okay with me? Use the federal government as contractors to go suppress free speech. They don't do it themselves. They instead pressure and intimidate and threaten individuals and organizations to do it for them. There is no difference between that and what the Stasi secret police did. No difference at all. And if someone wants to stand and defend that, I will yield the last 7 seconds of my time to you.
Actually-
Chairman, I